Welcome back to Badhta India Dekho, a fresh episode on someone who has completely reformed the education industry through something that is a buzzword these days, experiential learning. Today we have Ashish Rajpal with us, who is the founder of XSEED Education, who is not only going to talk to us about his journey with XSEED, but is also going to talk about what impact does an education company have on the society overall, on the youth of today, on the India that is coming up in the future.
I grew up in a middle class home in Delhi, and both my parents were very educated, but no money in the house. So there was a constant stress of not having enough, but thankfully enough to go to a school and get a decent education. A few things made an impression in my growing years. One was going to the mountains. It was so hot in Delhi, and thankfully my mother encouraged us to go trekking and spend time in the mountains. My dad was so keen I should go to IIT. Why? Because he went to IIT. And I made what now seems like a really stupid decision. I said, I'm going to take a year off and prepare for IIT. And I still didn't get into IIT. And but anyway, one picked oneself up and went to college and all of that. And it was, I think the writing of the CAT and the MBA exams is when I finally woke up. I think along that journey, I discovered the desire to do something for other people. And I think we may have spoken about it, that came from the mountains. You know, when you go into the mountains, पहाड़ों में आप छोटे छोटे घरों में जाते हो, वो आपको पानी देते हैं, चाय देते हैं, कई बार बोलते हैं अगर रहना है तो रह जाओ, खाना भी देते हैं. I would come back and tell my mother, you know, in Delhi, if someone came to our house, we would shoo them away. And I think that was the seed of wanting to do something for people other than your family and friends. औरों के लिए करना is not a very normal instinct, I think. So, yeah, many other things, but I would pick that one moment.
The question is on parenting, on what do you think school students have to be exposed to right in the beginning?
Talent must come first. I think parent की पहली duty है that where is the genius of the child? Because every child has something. It may not be visible. Some children are more naturally, visibly talented. But it could be in anything. Could be in math, could be in music, could be in sport, could be in helping others. We can spend a lot of time talking about the education system and what's wrong with it. But I think this duty lies at home to try, by the time she's 12 or 13, what is this girl's thing? If possible. First talent. Then around that and other things, kitna exposure de sakte hain? This whole business of experience, trying out things, going out of the comfort zone.
What other forms of exposure do you think parents can
Small thing. Small thing. Can you let him or her go to the store when they are 10 to go buy something? And instead of giving 10 rupees, give 50 rupees, little extra. Can they handle the change? Can they come back? If you're going to something which is, you think, a little bit too fancy for kids, take them along as long as kids are allowed. If you're wondering this book is too much for the kid, so what? Just get the book. If they hate dance or art and you're going for something, just convince them to come for this one. Who knows, you may change your mind. So it's in the small things. I think sometimes we make it very kind of grand and fancy. And small means also you can do it regularly.
The examples you're taking are of the girl child rather than the boy child. That's such refreshing to hear.
As one of my professors in college said, who used to write and use she instead of he. And so someone said, why do you keep saying she? He said, because for 10,000 years we forgot to say it. So it's okay to say it a few extra times now. And I think that's a pretty good reason. That for a long time, I think we said he way too often. So why not she? It's no different. It's the same thing. If you give 4 lines in the workbook, you've seen the XSEED workbook, and say, So what did you think of your day yesterday? It's like a very puzzling question. And initially I would get a little impatient with the children. Come on, I'm just asking you, how was your day yesterday? And till someone one day said, nobody's ever asked me how was my day yesterday. The unafraid child. It's not that I can't say that I love this. I'm just afraid to say it because then I don't know what people will think. Am I saying it wrong? Am I saying it in the wrong accent? Am I using the wrong word? I don't know. But that's one of the great joys in education. That's someone who's blocked or afraid, and you make them slightly more unafraid.
Very comfortable job based out of Paris. For someone like you to say that, okay, leave all of that and start struggling forever. I mean, we speak to...
I didn't know that. Oh, thank you for telling me that I'm struggling forever.
That's true.
It's kind of true, yeah. It is.
So how did you choose this journey? How did that transition happen?
I lost my father when I was 25. I was in the US, couldn't make it in time. My mother got cancer. Many other issues. So it was like a challenging 20s, But the birth of my daughter was a very big thing for me. Perhaps because we were abroad and for other reasons. It was a very moving experience, and I got interested in children for the first time. And then the second one came along. I got curious about differences in children. And then वो कीड़ा तो था ही कि कुछ करना है, that Himalayan कीड़ा you can call it. And so then I started researching, okay, then what do I do with children and education? And I didn't know that Harvard has a graduate school of education. Everybody knows the business school, right? Yeah. I found out about someone called Howard Gardner. I started reading his books. And then one thing led to another. And then it was like obsession stage. Ki ab ye karna hai. So I quit my job, went back to school.
What does this kind of education change? The one that you got at Harvard School of Education?
The great thing in going to a place like Harvard is not necessarily attending class and so on. There's something happening every minute. There are the greatest minds coming. Every evening there's a lecture or a speech. There are workshops happening. You can cross-register to MIT, to Kennedy School. So I was like serious. I was obsessed with, let me squeeze out maximum out of this lemon. So many things. And one of the fantastic classes, one of our professors, Eleanor Duckworth, this class we all took called T440, where she was teaching children fractions using chocolate bars, and we were being taught to see the phases of the moon over 30 days and permutation combination with clips.
Based on your experiences and therefore suggesting to people who would want to start something of their own, how do we identify passion?
My counsel to anyone who's even thinking of this, do not start something unless you're really passionate about a problem you want to solve. And some people may find it at 18, some people may find it at 38. So I think entrepreneurship is like that. Chances are it's going to be very hard. If you've just started it because someone was willing to invest money behind you, or your friend did it, or you think there's a lot of money chasing startups in India, which is true because there are very few options outside India right now, it seems. I would discourage that. I think that's a terrible idea. India is taking off. There are a lot of corporate jobs. You know that. I mean, you can make a decent living, good money, have a comfortable life. Why mess with this?
Was it immediate hitting the bullseye, or was it a few changes that you had to go through before kind of finding the right sweet spot?
I think in the beginning, there is what I would call the pre-XSEED period, which was 4 or 5 years of a lot of struggle, and tried many different models, tried teacher training, tried consulting, tried setting up schools. I set up 8 schools before I started XSEED. My vision was do something that would benefit the ordinary guy at scale. How do you make the underdog a winner? That's the best story, right? That's the best movie, when the underdog wins. So that's the idea of XSEED. Can the underdog win? And that was not easy. So it took a long time. I obviously came from some savings, lost all that money, health, marriage, everything suffered. But for whatever it's worth, I persisted. And then when the idea of XSEED came out, and that really came out of teaching grade 4 myself, as you know, then the sun started showing up, school started showing interest. I had no plans to raise funds. Suddenly, this whole private equity VC market started taking off. Someone said, why don't you raise some money? We got 10 term sheets. It suddenly feels whatever you're doing is going right. Until quite recently, whatever you're doing was going wrong.
Yeah.
And the difference is that you have to really care for it and keep trying till the wrong idea becomes the right idea. So that was phase 1. And then for 5-6 years, we had a very golden run and scaled up, then formally incorporated XSEED, went international, opened up Philippines, and so on and so forth. And then COVID happened. And everything came crashing down. Everything. Cash flows froze on 23rd of March. We anyway serve small schools.
Yeah.
Anyway, getting paid is a big challenge. These guys were like, parents have stopped paying us. We have no money. What do we do? And so on and so forth. We are at a team in multiple countries. Our expenses were at a certain level. But I think that's what the whole game is about. Because it's not a one-time activity. You have to constantly kind of wake up and then say, fine, I need to cut cost, I need to innovate, I need to do this better, I need to inject tech. We thankfully just acquired a tech company just before COVID, and we went crazy into launching our tech application, which is called the Super Teacher app, and many other initiatives. Yeah, I think after 2.5 years, again the hockey stick started rising, and so I think we are back on track. We are profitable again. We're a tighter team. We're a lot more watchful. We have a massive innovation agenda. We have a roadmap for the next 2 years.
What is that philosophy, if you want to kind of explain to our audience in brief? And why do you think it works?
You can think of XSEED as the problem-solving method. If you think people who are successful in life, in jobs, are those who can solve problems, then don't you think all of school education should be practiced to solve problems? But for some reason, we don't do that. We say school education should be about memorizing and writing tests and passing, and then suddenly you have to solve a problem. Giving a speech is a problem.
Yeah.
Running a meeting is a problem. Inventing a new formula is a problem. Saving 10% cost is a problem. Opening a new market and selling in is a problem. Making a podcast successful is a problem. So this XSEED method basically says, let's take every topic and teach it in a problem-solving way, which means let the child do some kind of activity, some kind of experiment. Let the child make some mistake, trial and error. Every day, if you're thinking about something in a practical way, but don't stop there. Then get into a conversation with the teacher. Step 3 is dialogue. In that, we say 50-50. Half the time teacher should talk, but half the time the student should. How do people learn to speak English? The secret is by speaking English. But in the class, if all the time you're being told, shut up, don't talk, be quiet, stand outside, it won't happen. It's like, it's okay, no problem. You can mix it with Hindi. आधा हिंदी में बोलो, आधा English में बोलो. Accent भी खराब है, कोई problem नहीं. बोलो तो सही. To welcome the thoughts of the children. Then we go into what I call Asian mode. Practice, practice, practice. Step 4. And step 5 is assessment. Right? Then how do you assess? So in our case, we've developed a whole skills test. It's called the Learnometer. Every November, like a mini board exam or SAT style, except it's all based on skills. What the new education policy and the CBSE shuffle and all. We've been talking about this for 10 years.
How have you been able to address this problem of resistance to change?
If you are trying to bring change, then you have to look for change agents. And that's one of my biggest learnings, that rather than break your head on someone who's not looking for change, invest in finding markers of people who are looking for change. And even in the smallest of towns, a daughter-in-law comes in from another town, she's well educated. The family is open to her getting involved in the school. I'm talking about a school-owning family.
Right.
and then suddenly she becomes the agent. Children succeeding from parents who may have started the school. Someone who gets exposed to a new idea or has traveled abroad or experienced somebody else, a relative, doing something different. Increasingly in the last 10 years, corporate couples quitting their jobs in big cities, going back. We know several people in the Northeast who have done that, set up schools from scratch with the intention of doing good. And then the early adopters slowly start infecting the fence sitters.
What's your advice to aspiring entrepreneurs on how they should look at competition?
XSEED was a pioneer. Nowhere in the world is a model like this. Total experience, problem solving based program in which children are dialoguing, learning on their own, much like the IB program or international schools for this was crazy. All the big publishing companies tried to buy us. I've met all the CEOs. But I think the big learning is competition will come sooner or later. So be prepared. And the only answer to that, I think, innovation is the only way. So XSEED has had a history, thank God, where every 2.5 years it comes with a major new release and innovation, which has saved us many times. As Bezos says, beyond a point, face the customer, don't face the competition. My core users are the teacher and the child. I would like to call schools our partners. My real customer is the 35-year-old mom. So women who have young children, I mean, she may be 29 or she may be 40, but my bullseye is the middle class mom who's 35 years old and wants her child to do better than she did. And I think that's a very powerful motivator. As Brian Chesky, the Airbnb guy, talks very well about what he learned from Paul Graham, that is it better to be liked by 1 million people or loved by 100 people? The answer is to be loved by 100 people. So those 100 people, if you really understand those 100 customers really, really well, you have a replication model.
Do you want to throw some light on how do you think one should handle corruption?
I think the only way to deal with corruption is zero tolerance. Like zero. To the best of my awareness, we've never paid a penny to anyone for any reason. But if you open that door even a little bit, it's a tsunami and it will never close.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people I interview from the so-called edtech sector who cannot believe me when I say that.
That you haven't.
So I take pride that I think XSEED has set an ethical bar in a difficult domain. But yeah, over my dead body, we would never retreat from that.
How has it changed you as a person, Ashish?
Oh, well, firstly, I mean, to set the record straight, I have never regretted the decision. I feel, it sounds a bit grand, I was born to do exactly what I'm doing. And I think that's a privilege. Not easy, as we spoke. But to your question that, how has it changed me as a person? I feel the man is made by the experience. Had I not faced the challenges, I would probably be a less interesting person. I would have less to say, less to give to others. I think I'm wiser for the experience, humbler. I think my relationship with my children, a lot richer than it could have been. I think my understanding of my country is a lot richer than it could have been. My appreciation for people who lead difficult lives, I've watched that very closely. My own confidence and my ability to face adversity, because I faced a lot of adversity in this journey.
How do you want your last day to look like?
Like the first day. There is no last day. And hopefully not know that it's the last day. And part of day one is treating it like a novice. Being a novice takes away so much pressure. You can ask stupid questions, you can go left, you can go right, you can try new things. That's what day one feels like, being like a novice, not like an expert.
Most challenging aspect of your work at XSEED till now?
Finding people with open minds.
One reform you would want to implement globally?
Just like you have a medical report, you should have by grade 8 a whole transcript on a child which tells you everything about what makes that child great. and that becomes the basis for the child taking decisions for himself or herself.
One of your most memorable classroom moments.
Yeah, I'll mention the Duckworth classroom, even though that was a teacher teaching children for other educators, but that was absolutely magical learning.
What would be the last line of your autobiography, if it is written, Ashish?
And he carried on.
Thank you so much, Ashish.
Lovely to see you. You're great at this. I told you. So I enjoyed the chat.